Did Nakobe Dean go out and limp around with
No, he was
all
fine.
the injury issues that he had that had him drop down into the 80s of the NFL draft?
He was fine. Again, t-shirts and shorts, though. If you have shoulder injuries and pec injuries, they're not going to show up in t-shirts and shorts. But if you got to block and grab and try to push people off you, that's a different category. So we'll see. I think the most important part of Nakobe Dean is the medical recheck that Howie Roseman had mentioned. We'll check him out when he gets here. So no news is good news.
Tis a Monday get-together here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. This is Birds 365 with your buddy pals and amigo. John McMullen and Jody McDonald. After a nice long weekend where John McMullen was worried about the Eagles down at the NovaCare complex, I was ripping up Kentucky Derby losing tickets because I did not have the 80-1 shot winner, Rich Strike. But that's okay. We're ready to turn our attention back to football. And, John, the countdown is on. As they say in the Open, 50-plus years you and I have been covering the NFL combined. The only season that matters is the next season, which we got a little bit more of a taste of this past weekend because the Eagles actually had a camp for their rookies. The newbies are all in town, working out diligently, feverishly. All right, maybe they ran around in shorts and T-shirts and the like. Your quality time spent at the NovaCare complex, Johnny Mac. Get a good feel for the Eagle Rooks?
Yeah, I mean, I sense a Super Bowl team developing. You always get a good feel that first rookie camp practice, which is even scaled back. It's interesting. The Eagles had 19 tryout players, Jody, on hand. About 40-something total there. 19 of them were tryout players. Probably the most notable was John Harrar for a couple reasons. He used to play basketball at Penn State. He's a local kid, so people might know him a little bit, but he's 6'9". But then I'm thinking to myself, I've been in a lot of rookie camps over the years, and
right.
There's always, you always want to sign like one or two of them. Coaches always say you want to set like it's sort of an example. Like if you do everything right and you work hard, we're going to reward you, and you try to reverberate that throughout the roster. That's always been sort of a conventional thinking. That's always made some sense to me, to be honest. But I'm looking at what they do now, and it's like, what are these? How do these kids show anything? They're not allowed to do anything.
Right.
How are they? And we'll see if the Eagles signed any of them. They haven't yet, but we'll see. I guess you can show up in the classroom. I guess you can do it that way. You can, but it's always, it's always been kind of a fun time of year from the fact that, you get a good story like that kid that I just mentioned. And, at least for a couple of weeks, people get excited, but I don't even know how they can show off in this environment in today's NFL, but 19 of them were trying. And, it's a dream. I don't want to dismiss it. But it's really, really difficult. That's what I was thinking. I was like, how do these tryout players even, open the coach's eye? And we'll see.
Right. And I read your stuff over the weekend. Everybody else's who covers the Eagles on a day-in, day-out basis, those that were there. Not once did I find any information about any Nick Sirianni competition. I was wondering, we going rock, paper, scissors? We're going free throws?
Well, they had the ball, the ball card. Why can't I think of the word? In the NBA where they roll out the balls. They had that in the NovaCare Complex Auditorium. They have
ball rack was the
ball
word
rack. Thank you, Thank you, Jody. I'm struggling. I'm drowning here. I'm looking for Jody Mack to help me.
I'm sorry. I didn't know where you're going, John. I would help you, but I had no idea what you were talking about.
Well, the ball rack that Larry Bird would take the 3-pointer off and, put his put his hand up and win the 3-point
Yes,
contest. So the
that's
ball
it.
rack.
The rack, yeah.
They had that in the NovaCare Complex Auditorium. So.
Well, and that's got to favor the tight end, former basketball
Yeah,
player
you would
from
think
Penn
so.
State.
That's a good
If
point.
he's leaning on hoops to decide, because you're right, they do so much actual football, so little actual football activity because they're limited and they're always injury conscious and the like. They did announce this weekend that during any of the mini camps, 7-on-7 is the max we're doing. We're not doing 11-on-11 because that's a lot of guys in a space. They could actually have contact and get injured. So you're right that they're doing very little football stuff. You got to have something to separate the individuals. Who's the best shooter out of the group? Roll the rack out.
Well, and I don't even know. As a 6'9" power forward, maybe he's not a shooter. I don't know. The Penn State fans out there can tell me how well John shot it. Not that you can't shoot well. Joel Embiid is a heck of a shooter. So, but tend to get taller. And they did do some individual drills. Obviously, there were some. I had video you can see on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. So they are doing some individual drills, and everybody got excited by Britton Kobe, sorry. The Utah returner, he's small and quick, and obviously you're going to show up this time of year when you're small and quick because,
I go back to like Darnell Pumphrey? Is that what
Darnell Pumphrey. Yeah, perfect example. And we'll see. I mean, the Eagles need a returner, so maybe Britton Kobe can make some noise. It's a little bit interesting seeing him. And then obviously you get to see Jordan Davis, and, boy, he's big.
Did Nakobe Dean go out and limp around?
He was fine.
All the injury issues that he had that had him drop down into the 80s of the NFL draft.
He was fine. Again, T-shirts and shorts, though. If you have shoulder injuries and pec injuries, they're not going to show up in T-shirts and shorts. But if you got to block and grab and try to push people off you, that's a different category. So we'll see. I think the most important part of Nakobe Dean is the medical recheck that Howie Roseman had mentioned. We'll check him out when he gets here. So. No news is good news. We haven't heard any bad news from that aspect. So, yeah, I think the question, and I said it from the start, I never got the pec part of it. I said, worst case scenario, all right, he's got to get a pec surgery. You redshirt him a little bit. Maybe he misses half a season. Maybe he misses the whole season. Who cares? Never got that part of it. From a talent standpoint, maybe it drops you from first to second round, that type of thing. The other stuff is probably the more important stuff, and that's degenerative stuff and shoulder, knee, blah blah blah, and all we can do there is wait and see and hope the Eagles doctors are right and other doctors are wrong. That's all you can do.
Exactly. And he's going to be a guy who's going to play with a chip on his shoulder once the season starts. Shoot, he's already showing a chip on his shoulder. I just read before we started the show that apparently he's fired his agency. So he's really ticked off that he fell to the third round. Not just, all right, well, I guess I'm going to have to prove myself. No, he's mad because he knows it costs him money because the salaries are slotted. If you're a first round pick, you make the second round, third round. So he's going to have to go through his first contract that what he feels is not going to be enough for his value, his worth. And he's making his agent pay for it because he fired. And the Wasserman Group is a pretty big agency, as a matter of fact. I know maybe they advised him not to run at the combine, and he felt he could have and should have run and took their advice and didn't do it. But here's the upside for the Eagles. You got yourself one motivated middle linebacker. The kid is going to come out with a massive chip on his shoulder. He's ticked off at the world because he thinks the world, a.k.a. the NFL, disrespected him and selected him where they selected him. The Eagles get to be the beneficiary of that.
Yeah, and that's one of the things you got to be careful about if you're an agent in this league, because you can't overblow. You can where a kid's going to go in the draft, but if you do, then they're going to be disappointed after the draft, and it's a very competitive industry, and you also have to have a feel for it. You have to understand where the kid's going to go. I don't think anybody had Nakobe Dean falling to the third round, but I do think a bunch of people had him going in the second round, mainly because of the devaluation of the position, his size, perhaps some concerns about that. And, how do you bring that up to somebody who's, the best player on the best defense in college football? And it's not the easiest thing to understand, but it's better be honest early than pay for it late. And it looks like they paid for it late. So, but all of this could work out in the Eagles' favor. If he comes in with the chip on his shoulders, you mentioned, Jody, and plays like he did, like he was at Georgia. I mean, could be the best linebacker the Eagles have had in a really long time, certainly since Jeremiah Trotter, I would think.
I agree. And you're right about the linebacker position not being valued the same way it has been at times in the NFL. But here's the only thing you need to know if you're Nakobe Dean. If you think you were the best linebacker in college football this year, and I think you have every right to do so, Devin Lloyd went at 27. You went at 80. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something that you can't take if you believe you were the best linebacker in football. If you believe all these medical reports are way over evaluated, that you're ready to go out day one, make plays in the NFL, no injury is going to stop you. That's why he's not happy, and that's why he's coming out with a chip on his shoulder. And I think the Eagles will very much benefit from that. All right, other thing I wanted to get into the first segment before we get our first guest up. Two good guys we've had on before, fans of the faves of the show. Joe Santoliquito from Philly Voice going to hop on in less than 15 minutes from now, and our buddy Rob Motti from the Associated Press is going to contribute to today's program. Eagles had their mini camp, got to see some guys, got to talk to some guys, get the first look at some of the guys in the Eagles colors. But we're also adding to the Eagle front office. There's been a lot of subtractions this offseason, JM. A lot of guys moving on to other organizations, which I think is a tribute to the Eagles as an organization, Howie Roseman specifically as a general manager, that he picks good guys that other teams in the league see their value and spirit them away for their own teams. But the Eagles actually made a pretty big ad this weekend. And the ongoing back and forth between themselves and the Cleveland Browns is still very much in place. Andrew Brown.
It's like a trade at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Yeah. Catherine Raish goes to Cleveland, and Charles Walls is coming back to Philadelphia as a director of player personnel. It's going to be interesting. I know, the Eagles were very happy about splitting that job last year. And that was the job that Ian Cunningham and Brandon Brown shared, who both got assistant GM jobs. One sort of majored in the scouting part of it, as it's been described to me, and minored in the pro part, and vice versa. And they really liked how that part of their front office worked. So it's going to be interesting to see if Charles Walls is one of two, or he's just going to be the flat out director of player personnel. But, Tom Donahoe left as well in recent days. His contract expired, and the Eagles are not going to renew it. Now, Tom is 75 years old.
I was going to say, he's been in the league forever, and he's kind of been here in Philadelphia forever. And, yes, there aren't as many out front and often available to media individuals out of the front office as there are in some other sports. I don't really even know what Tom, other than I recognize his name, and we see him every once in a while in a shot of the draft room on draft day for the Eagles.
Well, that was a high-profile one when he was mad that they drafted Milton Williams. And
right.
Who knows? A lot of us thought, all right, well, Tom's done after that.
Got one more year.
Yeah, they gave him the year to finish out his contract. Turns out he was done after that. Tom has been a very important part of this front office. Former general manager in the league, ran the personnel department in Pittsburgh for years. He gave Andy Waddle his first job way back in 1999 with the Steelers. So you're right. He's been around for a really long time. But if you look at when these things have happened before, and by these things I mean the Eagles it's been pretty constant. They suffer this attrition in the front office because people try to hire from the Eagles, which is a good thing. You're right,
Right.
Jody. It shows, people aren't going to hire people they don't think are well trained. So from that part, it's a feather in the Eagles' cap. But you know, 2016 when the shift from Chip Kelly to back to Howie Roseman 2.0, as I like to call it, um, they fired all Chip's people as well, all the football. Remember, Chip was running all the football ops. They gave him the whole candy store. So in essence, Tom Donahoe ran the department until they got Joe Douglas and put everything in place, and they had a pretty good draft. And he's always been sort of that break glass in case of emergency guy. And even this year, when they lose so many people, they start to lean on Tom. And as I said, because of his age, and he didn't want to do it full time anymore and run the department. So he's happy to step forward when they needed him, happy to step back when he could step back. Um, so, it's a bigger loss than I think people realize, because he's got so much experience. He's seen it all, he's done it all. He is that sort of, security blanket in the personnel department. But they want to use this attrition to sort of rebuild the department, get a little bit younger, and have this group when it the merry-go-round ends, so to speak. Have this group together for hopefully a longer period of time, and we'll see how it all works out. Obviously, they have a number of positions they got to hire for. They've gotten rid of some lower level scouts that we talked about last week. Pittsburgh still hasn't made a decision. So in theory, Andy Weidl's still in play for that job. And that's the one thing I would put out there. As I just said with Tom Donahoe, he's very close to Andy Weidl. In a lot of ways, he's his mentor. As I said, gave him his first job in this league. It's been here every day in Philadelphia since Andy got here. And he's out. And Casey Weidl, which we talked about last week, Andy's brother, is out and was fired. Let's be honest. They can, he's got a year left on his contract. The Eagles are going to honor it, which is nice, a nice thing to do. And basically they moved on from, because they have somebody they want to promote, who they think is going to be really good at the job. And she was going to leave. She had another offer, so they had to move quickly. And that's sort of the politics behind Casey Weidl. But the bottom line is, if somebody fires your brother and your mentor, I wouldn't be happy.
Did they fire both guys? Did they?
Well,
was it a wink and a nod? Listen, Andy's going, so we're moving on. It's going to be a clean sweep type thing. I know he hasn't been hired yet. There's been no announcement that he's going to be the general manager of the Steelers. But these two moves seem to lead you to believe that it's a foregone conclusion that he's going elsewhere, that maybe part of why Tom Donahoe and Weidl's brother was still here was because they appreciated Weidl. They wanted Weidl as a key component to their front office, and they now know he's moving on. So there's, all right, well, we don't necessarily have to stay with these guys anymore. Would you not be shocked now if Andy Weidl doesn't get that job?
I can tell the Eagles don't know if he's getting that job. They're not, in other words, they're not doing this because they think Andy is leaving, which is the strange part to me. Because I would think, if somebody gets a GM job, they're leaving. I mean, there's no negotiating. There's no, okay, can we do this to keep you? I mean, that's too big of a promotion. They're leaving. But the Eagles don't know if he's getting the job, and they made these moves, which is a little bit strange to me. That's the strange part to me. Now, I explained the Casey Weidl situation. All right. Tom is 75 years old, as I said. His contract expired, so technically he's not fired. And maybe he does just want to walk away because he's 75 years old, and he does want to retire. But I will say the timing is strange. You at least have to bring up the questions, because that's the first thing I thought is, what a strange time to move on from the vice president of player personnel's younger brother and his mentor. But there could be explanations for it. And Amina Solomon's going to be the one who gets promoted, I believe, to Casey's job. If she was going to leave the organization, maybe you can explain that to Andy Waddle and say, well, we couldn't lose her. If Tom truly retired on his own accord, that's an easy explanation. But those are things I can't really answer.
Okay. Might be a difficult conversation Howie Roseman is going to have if Andy Weidel doesn't get the job in Pittsburgh now. Yeah. Oh, by the way, yeah, sorry we had to fire your brother. Sorry we had to let your mentor go, but we still love you, big guy. You're still in charge. That might be a tough conversation to have. All right, we're hoping to have a conversation with our first guest coming up next. That would be Joe Santoliquido from PhillyVoice.com. Covers the Eagles, covers everything in Philadelphia. I know he covered a little boxing this weekend, as a matter of fact. He gave me a call on Sunday morning to talk boxing. I said, hey, we haven't had you on Bird 365 in a while. You want to come on? He said, yeah, I'll get up for you guys. Don't know if he's up yet. We don't see him in the green room, but we have faith that Joe Santoliquido, PhillyVoice.com, is going to join us next here on Birds 365.